Look at these women, out there with their little kids protesting Carmelo's trial. Outrageous. I'm still of the opinion that, aside from a few males who took the super soiger serum and became the soyest versions of themselves, most of the men on the liberal side are just brainwashed by the motherly hand of the matriarchy. One woman gets angry and convinces her friends, who all convince their friends, with each brainwashing or forcing their sons, husbands, and students, and so on and so forth, to obey them. I mean, you've seen Newsom's wife, right? She's proudly admitted in interviews that she gives her son dolls and misgenders male heroes in storybooks in order to brainwash her children, including her son, into being feminists, all during her insane tirade about stopping Trump's war on women. I know it seems like I'm digressing, but you have to think about who's protecting lunacy in all its dangerous forms, like poisoning the young minds, or those of governors into doing their bidding. I mean, check out that body language.
You wonder why we have such a horrific war on women in this country and that these guys are getting away with it, because you don't seem to care. So I just offer that with love. Look, you have incredible women in this room, and you have these allies. Ask about what we're here for today, don't you think?
But yes, the trial. Well, the expected happened. Who would have thought? Besides everyone. Well, a lot of people were worried that despite everything regarding the case, it would end up getting insane washed for the sake of optics, but Karmelo Anthony was found guilty. As I understand it, he had the opportunity to choose who he wanted to judge him. The Judge Roach, I still feel bad that someone had to grow up with that name, or the jury. And it seems like he chose the jury. And the reason why, of course, is to try and get pity. The same reason the black juror potentials were stripped from the trial. It wasn't racist, it's that they were teachers. And teachers are bleeding heart activists who simply cannot do the right thing, whether that be refusing to teach the gay BCs in their school, or convicting someone who's guilty of hot-blooded murder. Yes, these feminist activists seem to be the cheat code in the game of life, regardless of what genre you're enduring. I couldn't help but eye-roll a little bit when listening to Fox's coverage. I mean, the guy they were talking to isn't wrong. Pity is a powerful weapon to destroy justice with. That's the number one reason why mommy politicians ruin things.
How does that emotional testimony maybe impact the sentence that the jury might hand down and what they ultimately decide for him?
But I do think sympathy plays a role in this. And unlike a judge who is used to sentencing people and putting them away for the rest of their life, most jurors have never had to look someone in the eye, look at someone's parents and say, you know what, I'm going to put your child away for decades in prison. This is not an easy thing to do. And Anna, we know it's hard to get 12 men and women to agree on anything. I mean, but it's much easier to agree on guilt or innocence, right? Or guilty or not guilty, than it is to say, does he deserve 10, 20, 30, 40 years in prison? That is not an easy task for anyone.
By the way, I said before, I think we need to kill him.
There are certainly some factors in mitigation in this case. I don't think it is a death penalty type case. I know people are going to disagree with me. I do think it's a first-degree murder case. In most states, that would result in a sentence of 25 to life. Maybe he won't get that sentence necessarily because of the wide range under Texas state law. So I think the big thing to look out for is, where do those jurors land? Do they give Karmelo Anthony the opportunity at some point in his life to have the opportunity for parole or to be a free man, or do they put him away for life, which case would really, we've lost 2 lives unnecessarily in this tragedy.
It's not enough he goes to jail. We kill him. We execute him. That's my opinion.
Thankfully, the jury rejected the sudden passion argument they presented. What a joke. Sudden passion. As in your dog mangling your cat because its predatory instincts kicked in, or your cat ripping apart your bird for the same reason. That seems like it should get you a more severe charge, like an insane asylum type deal. But I'm not a legislator. It's not like I have any good ideas. Speaking of which, I've been talking about Factory Island for a while, and to my surprise, a lot of people have recently been talking about Australia 2.0, some people ingeniously suggesting a lunar penal colony, and I have to say, I'm delighted to hear people share the same thought. See, I don't think prison helps most people, violent criminals least of all. If they are too dangerous, and I think that speaks for itself, then capital punishment is in order. I know, there's legal mumbo-jumbo that says he wasn't actually an adult, even though in the majority of the world he's of age to consent to sex, vote, and go to war, but apparently he's too young to catch the death penalty for murder. Still, I dislike how easy it is to manipulate the justice system. All of our problems would be over within a span of 5, maybe 10 years if the majority of cases didn't have juries and the people had to represent themselves in court. Lawyers act against justice on purpose, and infantile jurors are loose bolts in the machine of justice. Like communism, these things are a quaint idea for small towns, but it doesn't work in the big city. Though I should say that you also need a punishment fitting of the crime, and Karmelo caught only 35 years. The sick thing is that it's probably longer than he would have lived on the streets with the attitude he had. I mean, is it really a punishment then? Or is this actually saving his life? Call me callous, but that's the first thing I thought. He's in the most violent time of his life from a statistical viewpoint, and considering his demographic, it's ultra-violent by comparison to everyone else. If you look at it in such a way, it almost feels like he cannibalized Metcalf. Plus, I can't imagine he's going to get out of prison as a 50-something-year-old, presuming it's not lowered or appealed, and he's going to somehow be a well-functioning member of society. And back on the topic of pity, we have this call-in here on Fox from a Jonathan Turley where he tells us how hard it was for the family to see their kid dragged away. Their kid, who murdered another kid and left him to die in his twin brother's arms.
The most difficult thing to watch is when they escort, particularly a young defendant, directly to jail after a decision of the court. No matter how well you prepare the family, it is a devastating moment, and it's devastating for everyone, even people who think that the person should go to jail. The family is never prepared for seeing their son or daughter taken to a side door by marshals. And it is a really tough thing to watch.
I have pity for anyone Karmelo knows who isn't trying to milk this or defend him, but that pity isn't that he's getting locked up, that they're going to lose their loved one. It's that he's collateral to their life. I feel bad for them because they're catching massive strays because he acted like a fool. But we know the other elements of this equation are trying to get something out of this. I don't know, like it's a life insurance scheme or something. They're trying to game the system. It's sick, and I have no pity for them. Anyway, I have a couple micro-apologies to make, tentatively. I don't even know if I'm wrong. I'm not a journalist, but I do try to get information from reputable sources before I say it. No one's right all the time, and there's so much disinformation these days, but I don't know. These news networks, they lose money per second when another meaningless murder happens, so they have to get out whatever news they have, real or fake, as soon as they can. What I mean to say is that in my previous video, it was a 5-inch knife, but I've also heard a 3.5-inch knife. I also said the entire point of that was that he was bringing a knife due to hood mentality, so I don't really think the length matters, but rather the way you use it. Similarly, I said that all 12 jurors were white, which is what I heard, but I've since heard that it's not true and that only some of them were white. I'm still unsure on that, but as with the knife, it's irrelevant, as the only thing racists care about is whether or not there's a black person on the jury. Even if it was 12 Asians, they'd be rioting. One other thing, someone got very angry at me for my lion comment, thinking I was comparing all black people to lions and all white people to humans. The entire point of my video wasn't even about Karmelo. It was about ghetto culture's obsession with respect. Respect is a derivative of pride. Now, what do you call a group of lions? Yes, a pride. A proudful lion, a savage animal, attacking a human. I wasn't trying to suggest it was blacks versus whites. People of all colors have lost their heads, literally in some cases, to the sin of pride, and ghetto culture is steeped deeply in it. That's all I meant. But as far as racism accusations go, I stand by accusing these people chanting for his freedom of being racists. I, however, am not. I watch plenty of black content creators, and plenty of them are highly intelligent and very based. Here's some examples to close the video.
Of murdering Austin Metcalf at the track meet. It turns out all of the things that the pro-blacks claimed happened that day did not happen. They were completely and totally wrong. And they're currently coping with the reality that they have to do mental gymnastics in order to explain to the audience why they did not get the outcome that they expected, right? If you paid attention to the facts, if you read, right, if you actually, watch the news, right? Listen to the news or understand anything about what's going on. You should have expected this result. This was not, a surprise, to be honest with you.
They was chasing after Karmelo. Why would they chase him?
The cops were chasing him.
Yeah. Nobody was chasing him. He ran because what he did was wrong, and he knew it was wrong. That's why he tried to hide the murder weapon. If he was being chased by the Metcalf brothers, why would they chase him? That's all they wanted, was for him to leave the tent. Why would they chase him? That never happened.
Yeah. I think these people either hearing voices or they're just so blatantly racist. They're not even attempting to figure out what really happened and trying to remain objective. All they see is skin color.
Yeah, and they say black people can't be racist.
Yeah, y'all actually think it's okay for a black kid, because he's black, to stab a kid because he's white.
That is insane.
Karmelo Anthony deserves to go to prison. Point blank, period. I'm not arguing with y'all.
I'm with her on that. He is definitely going to prison. He deserves to go to prison. And she's absolutely right. Had this been, just another, run of the mill, and I hate to say it this way, but run of the mill, black kid, unalives a black kid type crime, almost $500,000 or over $500,000 wouldn't have been raised, and folks wouldn't care. And they wouldn't care that the young man that was caught, that admitted to doing the heinous act, would be going to prison for 30, 40, 50 plus years. They wouldn't care.
And in this particular case, when I first saw it, I said, Karmelo Anthony murdered this kid. He murdered him, and he's going to jail. And at that, I was attacked by everybody. Attacked. Oh, Nate, you just don't know this. The history of this country shows that this is all about racism. What are you talking about? Just look at the facts. It's obvious he murdered the kid.
Now, one of them says we can't just walk away. I believe that's what the mother says in this video. Yes, you can. That's, in fact, exactly what Karmelo Anthony should have done. In fact, he shouldn't have had a knife on him at the track meet to begin with, let alone used it on a teenager who saw nothing coming and had his whole entire life taken away from him. Had a family lose their son because of what? Over nothingness. So what do you tell your 5 boys? You tell your 5 boys not to be a Karmelo Anthony. And to see so many people, and of course, black people and black activists defending these actions is absolutely insane.
Only black people are at the point where they will feel sorry for the criminal and the murderer more than the actual person who's not with us anymore. The actual victim, they don't care about. Everyone feels sorry for this little monster.
And you don't want to talk about the facts. You don't want to talk about how we need to fix the households and how we need to pay attention to the children and how we need to do better for ourselves. You want to blame white people. Go figure. You guys are completely disgusting. And I promise I would die on my feet talking about this before I die on my knees serving the degenerate behavior that is coming out of the black community.
I want to say something about this guy and many other black conservatives who say negative sugar honey iced tea about the African-American culture and community. Thank you so much for being honest and not giving a damn about just selling out and being on your knees to appease the black people.
So many people are getting obsessive about race wars because of things like teen takeovers and gang attacks, but it's not a race war. It's a culture war. There are loads of black people who hate ghetto culture. If you're not black and it makes you happy to hear a black person say something that's very based that you agree with, it's probably because you're not a racist and you're happy to agree with them because you want to live in harmony with them. And that's a great thing. I, for one, love to hear it. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please do the YouTube things.
For example, I think most people would be surprised to learn that despite the fact that blacks as a whole have a higher poverty rate than whites as a whole, black married couple families have for more than a quarter of a century, every single year, had a poverty rate under 10%. And in most of those years, the national poverty rate was not as low as 10%. So it's not a quite, and you say, well, this is due to institutional racism. In that case, does that mean that the racists make an exception for blacks who are married? I mean, do racists either know or care whether blacks are married? None of these glib explanations stands up to the slightest empirical study.